My family left my 18-year-old daughter at a dangerous border town with no ID and laughed about it. When I asked where she was, they shrugged. My nephew said, "She fits in more than we do," and they laughed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just made a decision.
And they had no idea what was coming next. Hi, I'm Danielle Carter. I'm 41, a small business owner, a mom, and until recently, the one person who always forgave and paid for everything.
I grew up in a family where silence was prized over truth, where my little sister Kendra could burn the kitchen down and still be praised for her spirit, while I got grounded for being too sensitive. So when I invited them on this vacation, my parents, my sister, her 2 kids, I thought, maybe this time would be different. I paid for everything: flights, rooms, meals, excursions. But on the second day of the trip, they showed up in the hotel lobby, smiling, chatting, and my daughter Rose wasn't with them. Before I tell you what I did next, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell, because this story, it's not just about me. It's about every woman who was ever told she was overreacting when she was the only one seeing the truth. It started off like any other family trip: sunshine, overpriced airport snacks, that constant hum of fake politeness between people who don't really like each other anymore. Rose was nervous from the beginning. She's 18, smart, too smart sometimes, and she doesn't sugarcoat things. The moment we landed for our layover, she leaned into me and whispered, "Mom, I don't think this is safe." I didn't think much of it. I figured she was being cautious, like always. We were flying to Corpus Christi, Texas, then transferring through El Paso. But my dad had apparently found a better deal, a weird backroad layover near the Mexico border. He bragged about it like it was a business win. "Saved us a fortune," he said. "Hardly any traffic. Smooth sailing." I should have known. Should have stopped right then and there. That morning, I stood in the resort lobby waiting, watching, counting heads. Darius, my husband, shifted next to me. He felt it too. Something was wrong. "Where's Rose?" I asked. It came out sharper than I meant. My dad didn't slow down. "Probably on the next flight," he said. "The next flight," I repeated. "She lost her ID," my mom added. "Back at the transfer point. Some mix-up." Suddenly, I felt it. That cold tightening in my chest. The kind your body gives before your brain catches up. "Where exactly did she lose it?" I asked. My dad looked unbothered. El Paso, or somewhere near Juarez. It was a blur. Darius turned fully toward them. "Wait, are you saying you left her?" Kendra rolled her eyes. She said she could handle it. She's 18. And then Max, my nephew, laughed. "You should have seen her freak out when she realized she couldn't board. Priceless." Savannah chimed in, giggling. She was crying. Full meltdown. I thought she was going to pass out. I stared at them. All of them. "You left her in a border zone with no ID." "She's smart," my mom said. "You always said that. She'll figure it out." That's when it hit me. They thought it was funny. They didn't think of her as family. They thought of her as a joke. "She didn't want to go that way anyway," Savannah muttered. "Kept saying it wasn't safe. Like it's not safe for women or whatever." And then Max said it. The thing that snapped something in me. I mean, her dad's black, right? She fits in more than we do. Darius's body tensed beside me. My jaw locked. Kendra jumped in quickly. "He didn't mean it that way." Max shrugged. "What, I didn't say anything bad?" And right there, in that exact moment, I stopped being the peacekeeper. I wasn't Danielle the fixer anymore. I looked at Darius and said, calm as stone, "We're fixing this." He nodded once, already pulling out his phone. And what I did next. Oh, they never saw it coming. I wish I could tell you this was the first red flag, that I was blindsided. But the truth is, the signs were always there. Growing up, I was the too much kid, too sensitive, too opinionated, too serious. Meanwhile, Kendra, my younger sister, was the storm everyone treated like sunshine. She could scream in a store or break a window. And my parents would say, "She's just spirited. If I so much as questioned something, I was being disrespectful."
And somehow, that dynamic followed us into adulthood.
Kendra became the heroic single mom, despite letting her kids eat candy for dinner and yelling at waiters. My mom would sigh and whisper, "Parenting is hard." But when Rose, my daughter, cried at a birthday party because she didn't want to hit a piñata, my dad looked at me and said, "You're babying her. She needs to toughen up." So when Rose started excelling honor roll, math team champion, citywide STEM grant at 17, I thought maybe they'd finally see her, appreciate her. But no. "She's smart," my mom said once, "but you don't want her to be only academic. She should try a sport too, like basketball." Basketball. My daughter is 5'2". She has asthma. She trips over flat surfaces. But sure, let's push basketball. Or better yet, being smart is good, but being well-rounded is better. Meanwhile, they treated Max's stick figure drawing like it belonged in the Louvre. And when Rose tried to speak up, tried to ask questions or set boundaries, she got labeled as dramatic or cold. "She's just like you," my mom would say to me, "always making things heavier than they need to be." No, she was trying to survive a family that made her feel like a guest in her own life. Even Darius used to tell me I was overthinking it. "Maybe it's just generational," he'd say. "Maybe it's not racism. Maybe it's just blindness." And for a while, I held on to that idea, because the alternative hurt too much. But looking back now, I know what it was. So when I planned this trip, a celebratory vacation after a major milestone in my business, I paid for everything: flights, accommodations, even gave them access to the group travel portal. Not just out of generosity, but because, deep down, I still hoped they'd show up differently. I thought maybe this time, they'd appreciate Rose. Maybe, for once, we'd feel like a real family. That's the part that stings the most. Because it wasn't just about forgetting her, it was the way they did it with laughter. Like her panic was a punchline. After they walked into that hotel lobby without her, pretending nothing was wrong, I immediately started calling Rose. Straight to voicemail. Darius tried her number too. Same result. She probably stayed near the help desk, my mom said. We told her not to wander. "Which desk?" I asked. Silence. That's when Darius snapped, not loud, not dramatic, but with that quiet tone he gets when he's holding back rage. "She's alone, in a high-risk border zone, with no ID, no phone connection, no local contact. And you thought that was fine." Savannah finally looked up from her phone. She didn't even want to go through there. She said, "Kept saying it wasn't safe for women." Max laughed. She was acting like a baby. Kept warning us about kidnapping and trafficking, like we were in a movie or something. Then he added, grinning, "Maybe she should have stayed. She fits in more." That's when it clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't carelessness. It was cruelty. I turned to my parents. "Did you even check your bags?" I asked. Maybe her ID slipped in accidentally. They looked at me like I'd accused them of murder. "You think we stole it," Kendra snapped. "I think, if there's even a small chance you have it, it's worth checking." They refused, acted insulted, defensive. Then I noticed something. Max wouldn't look me in the eye. Savannah was trying not to laugh. And then Kendra said it low, like she was trying to walk it back even as the words slipped out. It was already too late. What were we supposed to do? I froze. "What do you mean, too late?" She didn't answer. So I said it out loud. "You found her ID, after she couldn't board." The silence was louder than any scream. Max broke first. "I just hid it as a joke," he mumbled. She was being annoying. Kept talking about how unsafe it was. "You took her ID," I said. He shrugged. "I thought she needed to chill." I turned to my parents. And you all knew. My mom waved her hand. She was being dramatic, like always. Darius stepped forward, his voice tight. She's not dramatic. She's cautious. She's smart. She could have gone to the embassy, my dad said flatly. There is no embassy, I snapped. Not there. Not where you left her. Kendra rolled her eyes. She's legally an adult. What were we supposed to do? Cancel the trip because she was being difficult? Darius blinked at her. Yes. Yes, I echoed. That's exactly what you were supposed to do. And in that moment, everything I'd ignored came rushing back. All the times they undermined her. All the times they made her feel like she didn't belong. And now they'd left her. Intentionally. And laughed about it. Max's words were still ringing in my ears. She fits in more than we do. That's what he said. My 13-year-old nephew, smirking like he'd just made a joke on the school bus. Except this wasn't middle school. This was real. My daughter was alone, stranded near a border town, without ID, without help, without even a working phone. And they were laughing. I could feel Darius's arm tense beside me. Not in a violent way, but the kind of tension a father carries when someone's just made a mistake big enough to burn a bridge forever. Kendra jumped in fast, trying to clean up. He didn't mean it like that. Max didn't backpedal. I'm just saying, it wasn't that big a deal. He truly didn't get it. And maybe that's what broke me, not the ID, not the abandonment, but how completely unaware they were of what they'd done. I looked at each of them, Kendra with her crossed arms and superiority complex, Savannah with her phone glued to her palm, Max with his smirk fading under the weight of our silence. Then I looked at my parents, and that's when I knew this wasn't going to be a conversation. This was going to be a reckoning. We're fixing this, I told Darius. My voice didn't shake. I didn't scream. I didn't plead. I was done playing the calm one. I wasn't their peacekeeper anymore. Darius nodded and quietly stepped away, already pulling up flight apps on his phone. He didn't need more explanation. He knew. My mom called after us. You don't have to make a scene. But this wasn't a scene. Not yet. That would come later. I'd spent years trying to earn respect from people who only ever gave me conditions, who moved the goalposts every time I met their standards, who framed Max's macaroni art but rolled their eyes at Rose's science award. They never saw her. They tolerated her. And now, they'd left her behind like luggage that got lost in transit. Back in our hotel room, I was pacing. I kept calling Rose, straight to voicemail, every single time. Darius tried too. Nothing. Maybe her phone's dead, he said quietly. Maybe no signal. Or maybe, I said, she's sitting there thinking we left her too. The thought made me physically sick. She didn't even want to take that route. She said it over and over, too dangerous, too remote. She researched the border zones, read news reports. She warned them. And for that, they mocked her, laughed at her fear. And when she couldn't board without her ID, when her worst fears came true, they still didn't take her seriously. She said she'd handle it. Kendra had shrugged. That's not handling it. That's abandonment. But the final crack that came when I insisted again that they check their bags. Just to rule it out, I said, what if her ID got stuck behind a tray or slipped into someone's backpack? They got defensive immediately. We're not the enemy here, my dad snapped. No, but you're acting like it. I kept pressing. And then something shifted. Max stopped making eye contact. Savannah got weirdly quiet. And Kendra, she said something that sounded like a whisper, like she hoped I wouldn't hear it. It was already too late. My pulse skipped. What did you say? Kendra froze. I mean, it's not like we planned it. Darius stepped in. What exactly do you mean by too late? That's when it all came out. Max muttered. I hid it, just as a joke. She was being all dramatic about trafficking and safety. It was annoying.
You hid it, I repeated. You physically took it. Just her ID, he said, suddenly very interested in the carpet. I figured she'd chill out and we'd give it back before the gate.
But you didn't, I said. You waited. Until she couldn't board. Nobody said anything. Savannah looked like she was watching a reality show. My dad said, "It wasn't malicious. Kids pull pranks." Darius said nothing, just stood there, stone silent. "She told you it wasn't safe," I whispered. "She asked you not to reroute that way." "She was being dramatic," my mom said.
"She's not dramatic," I said, louder now. "You're just cruel."
That was it. The final nail. The last piece of me that wanted to make things work with these people evaporated. "She could have gone to the embassy," my dad said, as if this were some textbook scenario with clean lines and printed options. "There is no U.S. embassy in that area," I snapped. "You left her in a border zone with no documentation and zero resources." Kendra shrugged. "She's 18. "Exactly," Darius said. "She's barely an adult, and you knew she didn't have what she needed. You all did. And you left anyway." Still, no one apologized. No one showed guilt, just defensiveness. Like we were overreacting. I walked out. Not because I was done talking, but because I was seconds away from breaking something, and I didn't want to lose control. Not in front of them. They think this is over. That she'll call us from the next terminal and laugh it off. That we'll all go back to family dinners and polite fake smiles. But they were wrong. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because I had one last card to play. And I was done playing nice. Standing in that sterile hotel room, laptop open, I felt the weight of every insult, every laugh, every careless word. My family had abandoned Rose in a border zone, left her penniless, scared, alone, and laughed. They deserved consequences. I closed my eyes and mapped out the steps in my head. Rescue Rose immediately. Secure her safety. Teach them accountability. I opened my calendar to check the time difference. It was late afternoon in Corpus Christi. Rose had hours before the airport closed. I needed to move fast. 1. Booking the rescue flight. I turned to Darius. "I'll stay here and handle them. You go to get Rose." He nodded, already untying his shoes. I could see the tension easing in his shoulders once he knew his role. "Find the next flight out of El Paso tonight," I said. "One way. No layovers in dangerous zones." He pulled out his phone and tapped into the airline app. "Got one," he said, eyes scanning. "Leaves at midnight. Lands around 3 a.m. Perfect. Not too late that customs closes. Early enough to meet her." I asked him to book 2 tickets, one for him, one for Rose. He hit confirm. "Costly," he muttered, staring at the total. "I'll cover it," I said, pulling out my card. "They'll get the bill." 2. Securing her safety. Next, I needed to make sure Rose had a safe place to stay until Darius arrived. I opened Airbnb. I searched El Paso's secure neighborhood, filtered for places with 24/7 host support and verified guest reviews. I found a small, well-rated studio 2 miles from the airport. "Booked," I said. "She'll have her own lockbox for a key." I emailed the host. "Hi, I'm booking for a guest arriving early. Please text the lockbox code to 915-55-1234. Thanks." Then I texted Rose's number one last time. "Sweetheart, new plan. Check your messages in 5 minutes. Love, Mom." I didn't expect a reply. Her phone struggled to connect, but I needed that house ready. 3. Setting the trap. Now came the fun part. My family still believed they'd won. Their rooms were canceled. Their flights were gone. They were stranded. I drafted 2 group texts. To parents and Kendra. "Your rooms and flights have been canceled. Please make your own arrangements. This trip is no longer funded by me." To the extended family chat. "FYI, we rerouted Rose without her ID. She was stranded. I've taken care of her. You're on your own." I tapped send. Immediately, my phone buzzed. Angry replies. Apologies. Blame. I ignored them all. 4. Coordinating with Darius, where I messaged Darius the Airbnb address and host phone. Go here. Give them your confirmation number. Then head to the terminal and find Rose. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. I could almost see him sprinting to the car. 5. Securing evidence. I knew they'd claim ignorance later. So I opened the family group chat on my computer and scrolled up to their comments. Fits in more than we do. Priceless watching her panic. I took screenshots and emailed them to myself with timestamps. If they tried to downplay it, I'd have a record. 6. Letting them marinate. By the time Darius left, it was nearly 5 p.m. I locked the door to our suite so they couldn't sneak back in. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the bed. My parents were in the hallway, shouting at the front desk. Kendra was crying. Max looked lost. And Savannah was silent, processing. I stayed quiet, sipping water. Let them stew in their regret. 7. Backup communication. I reached out to Rose's emergency contact at the U.S. consulate just in case. I explained the situation minor with no ID stuck in terminal, asked for any consulate outreach or secure Wi-Fi access. Within an hour, I got an email. We've notified the El Paso Airport Authority to let her stay in our waiting area. That was all I needed. Rose would be safe until Darius arrived. 8. Final checks. Before the sun set, I triple-checked. Flight tickets downloaded. Airbnb confirmation. Screenshots saved. Consulate notified. Everything was in place. My plan was airtight. I leaned back and took a deep breath. In a few hours, Rose and Darius would touch down. She'd be safe. And my family. They'd face the consequences of their cruelty. They thought they could get away with it. They thought I'd forgive. But I'd shown them their power only existed as long as I let it. Now it was gone. And, in its place, was justice. I watched the clock tick toward midnight, heart pounding as I refreshed the flight tracker. Flight 423 from El Paso was on time. Every minute that passed felt like a drumbeat echoing in my chest. 1. Darius on the road at 10:30 p.m. Darius texted on my way. ETA 11:15. I saw his little car icon move along the map, cutting through dark highways toward the border. He stopped at a gas station 2 exits out, sent me a selfie behind the pump, tired eyes, but determined smile. Fuel and coffee. Ready. I replied, be careful. Head straight to Terminal B, then to the waiting area by Gate 12. He tapped back. Got it. My phone buzzed again, a confirmation from Airbnb. The lockbox code was active. Rose would have a key the moment she reached the front door. 2. Tense arrival at El Paso. At 11:10, Darius pulled into the airport lot. He texted, here. I held my breath. Minutes felt like hours. Then made it inside, Gate 12 waiting area. A beat later, no sign of her yet. I nearly jumped out of my seat. Checked the consulate area. They said they'd escort her there. He hesitated. Then, okay. 3. The first mini-climax. At 11:23, I saw the flight status change. Landed. I exhaled briefly. Then my phone rang. It was Darius. His voice was low, urgent. She's not at Gate 12. My stomach dropped. Check Gate 14. That's where the consulate holds unaccompanied minors. Seconds later, found her. I closed my eyes. Rose. Scared, but alive. 4. Rose's fear and relief. Through Darius's phone speaker, I heard a small voice. Mom. My breath caught. Rose. It's me. Mom, I thought you left me, she whispered, voice trembling. No, baby. I told them you weren't on your own, I said, voice breaking. Darius is coming for you. I passed the phone back to Darius. I imagined their reunion, her arms around his neck, his whispered promises of safety. 5. Securing the safe house. While they reunited in the terminal, I finalized the Airbnb check-in message. Hi again, just confirming she's in the lockbox 3 code 4829. Please text me when she's inside. 3 minutes later, she's in. All good. I texted Darius, she's safe. Head back when you're ready. He sent a thumbs up emoji. I smiled, tears brimming. 6. The second mini climax. My phone chimed with a group message from my parents still on vacation. It read, Danielle, what have you done? We're locked out. Please help. I opened their texts, read their frantic typos, the begging tones. My finger hovered over reply. Instead, I forwarded them a screenshot of Rose's safe house confirmation. No comment. Silence. 7. The drive home. At 1:15 a.m., Darius called again. We're leaving El Paso. She's okay. I exhaled deeply. Drive safe. I'll handle things here. I watched the tracker as their car icon retraced its path across the dark highway. 8. Follow-up and accountability. By 2:00 a.m., the house message lit up, Mom. Thank you. I was so scared. I sat on the edge of my bed, reading her words, grateful and shaken, but strong. I'll never leave you again, I replied. Then I opened the family group chat one more time. I typed, Rose is safe. Flight home booked for tomorrow morning. I expect an apology and an explanation when you get back. I hit send. 9. Quiet victory. I closed my laptop and sank into the silence. The hallway was empty now. The echoes of their anger and confusion had faded. I realized something powerful. They thought they controlled me with guilt and money. But the moment I wielded my own resources, my loyalty, my banking app, my voice, I reclaimed my power. And in that quiet room, I felt free. I didn't sleep. After Darius and Rose pulled into the driveway at 4 a.m., I sat in the dark living room, watching the headlights fade into the garage. The house was too quiet, no snoring from Kendra's kids down the hall. No muffled voices from my parents' room. Just the hum of the fridge and my own ragged breathing. I stood and opened the front door. The car engine shut off. I saw Darius help Rose out, her legs shaky but determined. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, guiding her inside. She carried a small backpack and clutched her phone like a lifeline. When they crossed the threshold, the hallway light hit their faces. Rose's eyes were red, but she managed a small, brave smile. Mom, she whispered, stepping toward me. I dropped to my knees and pulled her into a fierce hug. She buried her face in my shoulder. I felt every tremor in her body. You're safe now, I murmured. Darius stood back, watching us. He offered a tired grin, but didn't move. He trusted me in that moment. I held Rose tight and remembered every warning she'd given about this trip. Every time she said, I don't think this is safe. She was right. She'd been right all along. 1. The confrontation. I helped Rose set her bag on the couch and offered her water. She sank onto the cushions. Darius sat beside her. I moved to the entryway and switched on the hall light. My family stood there in their pajamas, Kendra with tears staining her cheeks, Max clutching a pillow, Savannah's eyes wide, and my parents stiff, faces ashamed. They looked like ghosts. My mom was the first to speak. Danielle, I held up a hand. Save it. My voice was calm, but inside it buzzed like electricity. You left my daughter alone in a dangerous place. You hid her ID and laughed about it. Do you understand what you did? My dad swallowed. We thought she'd be okay. I shook my head. That's not good enough. I gestured toward Rose. Look at her. You almost killed her sense of safety. You broke her trust. Kendra stepped forward. I'm sorry. Danielle, I didn't mean... Sorry doesn't fix it, I said. It doesn't cover the hours she spent terrified, or the image of you chuckling while she begged strangers for help. Max sniffed. I'm sorry, he mumbled. I didn't think. No, I said. You did think, you decided? His eyes filled with tears. You decided my daughter's fear was funny. Savannah's lower lip quivered. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Tears welled in her eyes, and I realized my niece was the only one here who seemed genuinely remorseful. Everyone else had tried to excuse it or shift blame. 2. The ripple effect. Then Darius stood. His voice was steady, without anger but firm. You called her Fitzin more than we do. You mocked her for being cautious. That's not just cruelty. That's racism, and you need to own that. My parents looked stunned. My mother blinked. My father's jaw clenched. Kendra bit her lip. Max and Savannah exchanged a frightened glance. I saw a shift in the room. The air felt charged, like something long buried had just been dragged into the open. Generations of silent assumptions, subtle biases, and protected behavior were finally exposed. I took a step forward. This isn't just about one trip. It's about every time you shut her down, every time you told her to toughen up, every backhanded compliment that made her feel she didn't belong. My mom's voice cracked. We never meant to hurt her. But you did, I said. And you'll keep hurting her if you don't change. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. I am done paying for your mistakes. I'm done being your sounding board. I'm done forgiving you without accountability. 3. Acknowledgement and accountability. My sister sobbed. I'm so sorry. I never realized. I thought I was protecting my kids. I didn't think about Rose. I know, I said softly, but wanting to protect your kids doesn't excuse putting mine in danger. My parents exchanged a look, finally seeing their own failures. My dad nodded slowly. We failed her, he admitted. And we failed you. I nodded. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Apologize to her, I said, pointing to Rose. They moved forward one by one. My mom knelt in front of her granddaughter. Rose, I am so sorry I let you down. Kendra went next, her voice trembling rose. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. Max stepped forward, eyes red. I'm sorry, Rose. Savannah's apology was a whisper. I'm sorry I laughed. Rose listened, her body stiff. When it was over, she turned to me and whispered, Mom, I forgive them, but they have to earn it. I looked at my family broken but honest in that moment and realized forgiveness would not be instant. It would be earned through consistent respect and acknowledgement. 4. The aftermath. Later that morning, over coffee, the atmosphere was tentative but changed. My family members spoke quietly. My parents asked specifics about Rose's night at the consulate area. Kendra promised to attend therapy to understand her biases. Max and Savannah offered to volunteer at a local youth center with Rose to rebuild trust by supporting her rather than mocking her. I listened and nodded. This was real accountability in action. Darius reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I smiled back, grateful for his unwavering support. 5. Reflection. By noon, everyone had gathered for a family photo, a ridiculous notion given the tension. But they insisted. I pressed my fingers together in my lap, waiting for the click. When the flash went off, I realized something important. Families can break and heal. Boundaries can hurt. But they can also protect. Holding people accountable can be an act of love. And as the camera captured our imperfect faces, I felt a cautious hope maybe this was the moment our story changed. Sitting at my kitchen table that afternoon, the light felt different, not because the sun had moved, but because everything inside me had shifted. I'd spent decades trying to earn approval from people who only ever offered conditions. This week, I learned I didn't have to beg. I could claim my dignity and protect my daughter on my own terms. 1. Lesson in boundaries. First, I discovered that boundaries are acts of love, not punishment. When I canceled their rooms and flights, I wasn't ending the trip out of spite. I was enforcing the one rule that mattered: you don't abandon family. Boundaries taught my daughter that her safety mattered more than anyone's convenience. And they taught my family that actions have consequences. I realized many of us hesitate to set limits because we fear being mean or dramatic. But setting limits can be the kindest thing you do for yourself and for the people you care about. It creates a space where respect can actually grow. 2. Power of accountability. Next, I saw the power of accountability over apologies. And "I'm sorry for my parents" meant little until they faced the reality of their cruelty. Taking screenshots, booking rescue flights, and refusing to back down forced them to confront their behavior. Accountability doesn't have to be grand gestures. It can be quiet, consistent actions that reflect your values. When Darius and Rose walked back through the door, I wasn't an angry mother. I was a protector who followed through. Watching the conflict resolve over coffee the following morning, I knew they had begun a real journey toward understanding. They would have to earn back trust, not just beg for forgiveness. 3. Embracing your inner strength. This experience reminded me how resilient we can be when pushed to the edge. All my life, I'd played the peacemaker, smoothing over every crack. But peacemaking without protection only strengthens the pattern. In Part 4 and Part 5, when I mapped out the rescue plan and executed it calmly, I tapped into a confidence I didn't know I had. That confidence changed everything. If you've ever felt helpless watching someone you love get mistreated, remember you have resources: your voice, your wallet, your network. Use them. You don't have to confront people with shouts or threats. Sometimes, quiet competence is all it takes to shift the balance. 4. Family can change, but it takes time. Watching my family that morning, I saw hope and caution. They apologized. They promised therapy, community service, more conversations with Rose. But I know change isn't linear. People slip back into old habits when the pressure's off. I told them, "I forgive you today, but tomorrow, I'll need to see evidence." Real forgiveness, real change, comes from consistent respect, empathy, and action. If you choose to mend a broken relationship, make sure you establish clear expectations. Ask yourself, what will it look like when they truly understand my perspective? Don't settle for empty words. 5. Universal truths. Although my story centers on race, family, and a dangerous border layover, I believe these lessons apply to anyone, whether it's a toxic friend, a neglectful partner, or a workplace that undervalues you. The principles are the same. Define your boundaries. Act with accountability. Leverage your resources. Expect consistent change before forgiveness. If you've ever been gaslit, told you were too sensitive, you know how isolating it can feel. My daughter and I discovered that speaking up isn't selfish. It's the first step toward self-respect. 6. The open ending. So, where do we go from here? For me, life is about rebuilding not just relationships, but self-trust. Every time I scroll past a passive-aggressive text or a snide comment, I remind myself of what happened this week. I remember that calm, strategic clicks of cancellation and booking a rescue flight. I remember Rose safe in that studio near the airport. I remember my family, humbled and accountable. But our story isn't over. They still have to prove themselves worthy of our trust. And I still have to guard that trust fiercely. Every day will be a test of their commitment and of my resolve. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set a boundary that changed everything? What tools did you use to hold people accountable? Share your story in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more stories on reclaiming your power and protecting the ones you love.
Remember, you deserve respect, and sometimes that starts with saying no. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.